Hello students, let us come to the next topic, trigeminal ganglion. Trigeminal ganglion is the sensory ganglion of trigeminal nerve, which is the fifth cranial nerve. Sensory ganglions provide sensory supply to the area of distribution. Also, sensory ganglia are made up of pseudo-unipolar or unipolar nerve fibers. Nerve fibers of the trigeminal ganglion are having T-shaped arrangement. So in the area of origin, that is in the pons area and somewhat upper part of the medulla oblongata, their origin is in the elongated manner. Then central processes proceed forwards and then peripheral processes. So this structure resembles to English letter T. So it is having T-shaped arrangement of its nerve processes. Nerve fibers which arises in the central nervous system, these proceed further and divides into central process and the peripheral process. Trigeminal ganglion is homologous to the dorsal root ganglion of the spinal nerve. So this is the diagram showing cut section of the spinal cord. It is having dorsal root and ventral root, and in the dorsal root there is presence of an ganglion. So after the origin of the nerve fibers from the spinal cord, dorsal root is bearing a ganglion. Then these two roots combine and form a single spinal nerve, and further these divide into rami, dorsal and ventral rami. So this is same in the case of trigeminal ganglion. The nerve fibers arising in the central nervous system, then these proceed further and forms a ganglion here, and from the ganglion further the branches of this nerve, these arises. Shape of trigeminal ganglion. Trigeminal ganglion is crescentic or semi-lunar in shape. It is having convexity in its anterior and lateral aspect. So it is convex anterolaterally, and posteriorly it is concave. It is concave in this area. Three divisions of the trigeminal nerve emerge from this anterolateral convexity, that is ophthalmic division, maxillary and mandibular division leaves the ganglion from its convex area, and posterior concavity receives the sensory root of the nerve. So the sensory root is visible here, entering this concave part of the ganglion. Location of this ganglion. Trigeminal ganglion lies on the trigeminal impression on the anterior surface of petrous temporal bone near its apex. So this is petrous temporal of one side, this is petrous temporal of the other side, and here lies the apex of the petrous temporal. So in this area here lies apical part of the petrous temporal, and over which lies the trigeminal ganglion. Trigeminal ganglion occupies a special space of dura mater. So this is petrous temporal bone, apical part of petrous temporal bone. In this area, dura mater, it forms an extension over the trigeminal ganglion in the form of a cave and lodges the trigeminal ganglion within it. So this pouch of dura mater, it is known as Meckel's cave or trigeminal cave. Both the layers of dura mater, endostele and meningeal layer, surrounds the trigeminal ganglion, and also this inner aspect of the cave, it is lined by pia arachnoid. Means ganglion is surrounded by CSF also. So the ganglion lies about 5 cm deeper to the preauricular point. Preauricular point means the point present just in front of the external acoustic meatus. So in this area here lies external acoustic meatus. So deeper to this external acoustic meatus, about 5 cm deep, lies the trigeminal ganglion. Relations of trigeminal ganglion. So in this diagram we can see trigeminal ganglion lies in close relation to the cavernous sinus. Lateral wall of the cavernous sinus is having some extension of trigeminal ganglion into it. Here lies the internal carotid artery. This is middle meningeal artery. This is greater petrosal nerve, and this is the motor root of the ganglion, which joins with the mandibular division of the trigeminal nerve. First are medial relations. Medially, we can see internal carotid arteries present to the ganglion, and also the posterior part of the cavernous sinus is also present medially. Lateral relations, there is presence of middle meningeal artery on the lateral side of the ganglion. Superior relation is the parahippocampal gyrus. So parahippocampal gyrus is present on the inferior surface of the brain. So this blue color area indicates the parahippocampal gyrus. It is present superior to the trigeminal ganglion. Inferior relations, first of all, motor root of the trigeminal nerve. So it is shown with the dots. So this dotted structure is motor root of trigeminal nerve present inferior to the ganglion. Then greater petrosal nerve, it is also present inferior to the ganglion. Then here lies the apex of the petrous temporal bone, over which lies the ganglion itself. And then foramen lacerum. Foramen lacerum is also present deeper in this area, deeper to the trigeminal nerve, and comes in inferior relation of the trigeminal ganglion. Associated roots and branches. So the nuclei of the trigeminal nerve lies in the pons area and some part of upper part of the medulla oblongata also. So from origin, from these nuclei, the fibers proceed forwards or anteriorly, and these fibers then forms the central processes and peripheral processes. So before the nucleus, these are central processes, and after the nucleus, these are the peripheral processes. So central processes of the ganglion, these are sensory roots which are attached to the pons at its junction with the middle cerebral peduncle. So this is pons and this is ganglion, and this area of connection is the that is the middle cerebellar peduncle. Peripheral processes of the ganglion, these form three divisions of the trigeminal nerve. Uppermost is the ophthalmic division, then maxillary, and then mandibular division. Motor root of trigeminal nerve also rises from the pons superomedial to the sensory root. So in this area there is origin of the motor root also, which is not shown in the diagram. The motor root passes below the trigeminal ganglion from medial to lateral side, and then joins the mandibular division of trigeminal nerve in the foramen ovale. So this foramen ovale is visible here, in which both the nerves, these are uniting with one another. Blood supply of the ganglion. Ganglion is supplied by branches of internal carotid artery and the middle meningeal artery, the vessels which passes close to the ganglion. Accessory meningeal artery also supplies this ganglion, trigeminal ganglion. So middle meningeal and accessory meningeal both are the branches of this maxillary artery. A small branch from the external carotid artery, that is the ascending pharyngeal artery, it reaches up to the cranial cavity and give meningeal branches for the supply of this trigeminal ganglion also. Applied anatomy related to trigeminal ganglion. First of all, trigeminal neuralgia. In trigeminal neuralgia, pain is felt along the distribution of these branches of the trigeminal nerve. Causes may be the damage to the roots of the trigeminal nerve or within the ganglion due to any injury, or irritation of the nerve roots within the ganglion or throughout the course of the nerve because of any cancerous condition, carcinoma or tumor. In that condition, pain is relieved by injecting alcohol into the ganglion. Second condition is related with herpes zoster. So after recovery from the primary herpes infection, virus is not cleared from the human body, but it lies dormant within the trigeminal ganglion. So this dormant virus present in the ganglion may get active at times and give rise to herpes labialis, that is herpes of the lips, and herpetic gingivostomatitis, means infection of the gums and buccal cavity. Next topic is middle meningeal artery. It is also one of the content of cranial cavity. So origin of middle meningeal artery. Middle meningeal artery arises from the first part of maxillary artery. It arises from the first part of maxillary artery in the infratemporal fossa. After origin, the artery run upwards and medially deep to the lateral pterygoid muscle. So this is lateral pterygoid muscle. Deep to it lies the middle meningeal artery, and it is present superficial to sphenomandibular ligament. This ligament extending from spine of the sphenoid to the mandible. Here it passes through a loop formed by two roots of the auriculotemporal nerve. Then it enters into the middle cranial fossa by passing through a foramen which is present here, that is the foramen spinosum. Then the artery enters into the middle cranial fossa. This is foramen spinosum, through which artery is coming from the infratemporal fossa. Then it reaches the middle cranial fossa. Here in the middle cranial fossa, the course of the artery is extradural, means it is present outside the dura mater. It runs on the outer surface of the dura mater. And in comparison to the meningeal vein is present more close to the bone, means vein is present towards the bone, then artery is present medial to the bone, to the vein, or deeper to the vein, means artery and vein are running together, but in the extradural space, the space between the bony skull and the dura mater, vein is present towards the bone and artery is present towards the dura mater. Here in the middle cranial fossa, the artery run forwards and laterally and grooving the squamous part of temporal bone and divides into frontal branch and the parietal branch. Frontal branch is larger as compared to the parietal branch. First it runs forwards and laterally towards the lateral end of the lesser wing of the sphenoid bone and crossing the inner aspect of the pterion. Pterion is the meeting point of frontal, parietal, squamous temporal and greater wing of the sphenoid bone. So this diagram shows the further course of middle meningeal artery. So here we can see this is middle meningeal. It divides into two branches, posterior parietal branch and anterior frontal branch. And this is the area of the pterion where four bones are uniting. So after pterion or beyond pterion, the course of the artery is, so from this area the artery run upwards and backwards parallel to and a little in front of the central sulcus of the cerebral hemisphere. So if we see it in relation to the cerebral hemisphere, in this area lies the central sulcus of the cerebrum. So this branch runs parallel to or slightly in front of the central sulcus of the cerebral hemisphere. So the area in front of the central sulcus of the cerebrum is the motor area. So we can say after crossing the pterion, the artery is closely related to the motor area of the cerebral cortex. So the frontal branch further give branches which reaches towards the anterior cranial fossa and supplies structures there. Next is parietal or posterior branch. This branch runs backwards over or near the superior temporal sulcus of the cerebrum. It lies about 4 cm above the level of zygomatic arch, which crosses from this area. It ends in front of the posterior inferior angle of parietal bone by dividing into branches which supplies in the parietal area and upper part of the occipital area. Branches of middle meningeal artery. Middle meningeal artery is the main artery which supplies the bones in the area from where it passes, and also supplies the diplo area and supplies the red bone marrow. It gives very less supply to the dura mater present in that areas. It gives small branches which supplies dura mater. Within the cranial cavity, it gives ganglionic branches to the trigeminal ganglion. A petrosal branch is also given from it to the hiatus for the greater petrosal nerve. Hiatus means an opening or a breach in any structure. So it means here it is the foramen for the greater petrosal nerve, and this is the canal of greater petrosal nerve. So this area it is supplied by a branch from the middle meningeal artery. A branch in this area is also given for the tensor tympani muscle, that is the superior tympanic branch. Tensor tympani is the muscle of the middle ear. Temporal branches are given in the area of the temporal fossa for its supply, and in the anterior cranial fossa it gives anastomotic branches that enters into the orbit and anastomose with the lacrimal artery. Clinical anatomy related to the artery. Middle meningeal artery is of great surgical importance because it can be torn in head injuries. So if injury occur in this area or nearby areas, this artery is prone for getting injured or torn. This results in extradural hemorrhage or epidural hematoma formation. The hematoma in this area presses upon the motor area of the cerebrum, giving rise to hemiplegia, means paralysis of right or left half of the body. So paralysis of opposite side take place, means if hematoma is present on the left side, paralysis of right side of the body, right half of the body take place, because left half of the cerebrum it controls the right half of the body. The anterior division can be approached surgically in order to remove the hematoma by making in a hole in the area of the pterion 4 cm above the midpoint of zygomatic arch, which is present in this area. Sometimes posterior branch get involved in injury and hematoma formation that give symptom of contralateral deafness, means the ear of opposite side is involved and symptoms of deafness appear. It may be because in the temporal lobe here lies a area of hearing, so compression of that area may give rise to deafness. In this case, hole is made about 4 cm above and behind the external acoustic meatus to remove the hematoma. Next is the other structures which are visible after removing the brain from the cranial cavity. So the structures which are visible after removing the brain in the cavity are 12 cranial nerves, which are shown in the yellow color in the diagram. Then cavernous part of the internal carotid artery, which is present in this area. 4 petrosal nerves, and then in last is the fourth part of the vertebral artery. So 12 cranial nerves have already been discussed in detail. So this is the diagram showing 4 parts of the internal carotid artery. First is the cervical part present in neck area. Next is the petrous part present in the petrous temporal bone. Then the cavernous part. So this portion is the cavernous part of the artery, and last part is the cerebral part of the artery. So cavernous part is that part which runs within the cavernous sinus. It is also a curved part and it gives 3 branches. First branch is the cavernous branch to the trigeminal ganglion. So it gives a branch for the trigeminal ganglion. Superior hypophyseal artery and inferior hypophyseal arteries are given for the hypophysis cerebri or the pituitary gland. The last part of the artery is the cerebral part, which lies on the inferior surface of the brain after emerging from the cavernous sinus. This part gives various branches which forms the circle of Willis for the supply of brain. After leaving the cavernous sinus present in this area, this internal carotid artery appears on the surface of the brain. So then it lies very much close to the optic chiasma, visible in this yellow color. While running on the inferior surface, the artery further give various branches. First branch is the ophthalmic artery, which is given by internal carotid. So after its origin, ophthalmic artery enters into the optic canal and reaches the orbit and further divide and give branches to the eyeball and the muscles of the orbit. Other branches are anterior cerebral, middle cerebral, anterior choroidal, posterior communicating branch. These arteries supplies the brain. This is the diagram showing circle of Willis, which is formed by the branches of internal carotid artery and the basilar artery. So here we can find out this is internal carotid artery. It is giving one branch, anterior cerebral artery. This is middle cerebral artery, and this is the posterior communicating branch, which joins with the posterior cerebral artery, which is a branch of the basilar artery. So in this manner, branches of internal carotid and basilar artery, these form a circle known as circle of Willis, which supply various parts of the brain. The curvatures of the petrous part, cavernous part and the cerebral part of internal carotid artery together forms an S-shaped structure that is known as carotid siphon of angiograms. This angiogram is showing branches of internal carotid artery in its cerebral part. This is anterior cerebral artery, middle cerebral artery, then posterior cerebral artery, and also this S-shaped band, it is visible. This is the carotid siphon. This carotid siphon is examined or viewed for any stenosis or calcification. Next content of cranial cavity are the petrosal nerves. These are 3 in number: greater, deep and lesser petrosal nerves. So first comes to greater petrosal. Greater petrosal nerve arises from the geniculate ganglion of the facial nerve, which is coming. This is facial nerve. It's from a ganglion known as geniculate ganglion, from where arises the greater petrosal nerve. It is carrying gustatory and parasympathetic fibers. After its origin, the nerve enters into the skull through hiatus for the greater petrosal nerve, which is present on the anterior surface of lesser of the petrous temporal bone. Then it proceeds towards the foramen lacerum. This is foramen lacerum shown, where it meets with the deep petrosal nerve. Deep petrosal nerve is carrying sympathetic fibers. So both these nerves join together to form the nerve of the pterygoid canal. Then nerve of the pterygoid canal reaches the pterygopalatine foramen. Here the parasympathetic fibers relay and postganglionic fibers arising from the ganglion. These supply the lacrimal gland, mucosa of the nose, palate and pharynx. The gustatory fibers carried by the great petrosal nerve, these do not relay in the ganglion and these are distributed to the palate only. Deep petrosal nerve is a sympathetic nerve. It is a branch of sympathetic plexus which is present over the internal carotid artery. It carries postganglionic fibers of superior cervical ganglion. Then the deep petrosal nerve joins the greater petrosal nerve to form nerve of the pterygoid canal, which reaches the pterygopalatine ganglion. And the sympathetic fibers of deep petrosal nerve, these are distributed through the branches of the pterygopalatine ganglion. Next is lesser petrosal nerve. Lesser petrosal nerve is parasympathetic in nature and it is a branch of tympanic plexus. Tympanic plexus is a network of nerves which is present over the promontory of middle ear cavity. This plexus is formed by tympanic branch of the glossopharyngeal nerve and branch from the internal carotid plexus, which is present on the over the internal carotid artery. So lesser petrosal nerve is arising from this plexus and it is driving its preganglionic parasympathetic fibers from the tympanic branch of glossopharyngeal nerve. After leaving the middle ear cavity, it reaches the middle cranial fossa and enters into the middle cranial fossa through hiatus for lesser petrosal nerve. Hiatus for lesser petrosal nerve is present slightly lateral to the hiatus for greater petrosal nerve in this area, and it leads into the foramen ovale. So lesser petrosal nerve passes through a groove extending from this hiatus to the foramen ovale and passes out of the skull through the foramen ovale and joins the otic ganglion. Postganglionic fibers from the otic ganglion. This is otic ganglion present in this area. Then the fibers arising from this ganglion supplies the parotid gland. So last structure which appear in the skull is the fourth part of vertebral artery. So as we have already discussed about the vertebral artery in detail, so this part also have been covered. So two vertebral arteries within the skull, these join together to form the basilar artery.